Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Get Lit, brought to you by Edyoucore Sports and Entertainment, and also co-sponsored by the Shadow League. My name is Drew Hawkins. I am the founder and president of Edyoucore Sports and Entertainment. We are a company that provides financial education to athletes and entertainers, and our focus is to educate, equip, and just make them smarter about things that they're doing as it relates to their business and financial and lifestyle affairs. Our co-host Bart Scott will be joining us shortly. He's wrapping up a segment over on his other show. And we are delighted to be joined by a very, very, very special guest today, the most talented Tamara Tunie. And I'm going to give her her proper introduction in just 1 second. As you all know, April is Financial Literacy Month. And again, our focus is all about getting lit. Now, you hear that term, get lit. Get lit can mean a lot of things for a lot of people as folks have reached out to me. But when we think about it, it's all about getting literate as it relates to your finances, getting more on top of your money, what's happening with your cheese, or as Marshawn Lynch refers to it, making sure you can count those chickens and understand what's happening there on a regular basis. We just want folks to get, a tighter grip on things and have a better understanding, especially in light of what we're dealing with from an environment standpoint now and all the things that are happening right now. So as you know, we began this series last week. Our focus is to have some incredible, dynamic guests who have been woefully successful in their careers, and we really tee that up today. And they're going to give some perspectives about things happening in their careers, as well as things that they are dealing with from a financial perspective in light of what we're going through, and really be able to drop some knowledge that's going to be applicable for everybody to be able to take advantage of and utilize as it relates to what's happening out there. Bart is going to be joining us shortly, but we're going to go ahead and jump right in now. We are joined today by the one and only Tamara Tunie. Her resume is absolutely amazing. It would probably take me the next 25 to 30 minutes to go through all of her accomplishments. So I'm going to abbreviate a little bit. As you all know, she is an award-winning actress, singer, producer, writer. Her list of accomplishments just goes on and on and on. From a TV perspective, some of her most notables have been a staple way back when in As the World Turns. So many people recognize her for the incredible work that she has done on Law and Order and is still actively doing work there. Was on 24, NYPD Blues, Blue Bloods, Survivor's Remorse, Sex and the City, Chicago Blues, The Good Wife, and again, there are probably another 50 or 60 mentions just from a TV front that I didn't hit on. From a movie side, The Devil's Advocate, Wall Street, and obviously played a lead role with Denzel Washington in Flight. In addition to that, you might not know, but she also dropped her first CD this past year called Dreamsville. So needless to say, very well-rounded in so many areas, also does a ton of work in the theatrical performance area, which is a huge passion of hers, to direct, to write, produce, as well as on the acting side there. So all I can say is the sister is tight. In addition to that, she's an alma mater of Carnegie Mellon. She consistently goes back and contributes to those that are coming through her school and the programs that are there. She's on the board at Carnegie Mellon, and she's really an advocate for getting things lit from a financial perspective. I guess the only flaw in her resume is that she's a diehard Pittsburgh Steeler fan, and we still love her to death. Her and her mom, Aunt G, come to Baltimore and, root those Steelers on for each Steeler Ravens game each year. So we're excited and welcome to have them down here for that. So Tamara, welcome. Super excited to have you joining us and, really looking forward to having a great conversation with you today.
Thanks so much, Drew. That was an incredible introduction. I so appreciate it. And I'm always happy to come down and represent Pittsburgh when they're playing the Ravens. And I just want to thank you for always being such a hospitable host, always welcoming us, even though we do go toe to toe.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So let's jump right in. One of the big things as it relates to your background that I didn't talk about is you've been a huge advocate for financial literacy in a variety of ways. And, just talk a little bit about why getting lit is so important to you.
Well, I think it's critical. As an artist, you often hear so many different stories about people in the entertainment business who have had successful careers, but ultimately end up broke. And I want to help change that scenario. When you reached out to me about participating several years ago, I was so thrilled to come on board because I think it's really necessary for those of us in show business to understand the business part of the show.
Definitely. So, you've done so many incredible things. Your career has been absolutely amazing. You've done very well financially, but you had a challenge and an issue that you had to deal with as it related to your finances. Can you talk a little bit about that story for people to share?
Absolutely. I'm happy to share it. About 10 years ago or so, I discovered that a business manager that I had been working with for almost 20 years had been embezzling from me for a good 7 years, maybe 8, that we could actually clock. How I discovered it was that I had moved my business to another firm that was a multi-partnered firm. And in the transition to get the records and my past profit and loss statements, we discovered the embezzlement. The business manager that I had been working with previously was a single entity. He was the sole owner, president of the company. And I think, I learned later that that was a red flag that maybe I should have paid attention to. What was unfortunate was that we had worked together for almost 20 years. And for the first 10 years or so, it was a fantastic relationship, trustworthy. Everything was as it should be. And then as I got more comfortable with him and also more busy, as you said, I've done a lot in my career, and at certain times I was working multiple jobs at the same time. And so I depended on him to, keep things going for me, keeping me abreast of my situation. And ultimately, that was when he decided to start taking advantage. And so I lost over $1 million. I'll say it out loud. Because it's part of the public record. And it was, the level of betrayal was profound. This was someone, as I said, we worked together for all those years, but also it was almost like part of the family. And so it was, not only financially devastating, but also emotionally devastating. However, I am my mother and father's daughter. And I immediately went to my attorneys. My attorneys went to the district attorney here in New York City. Long story short, there was a prosecution. He ended up going to prison, having to make restitution. And I decided to move forward. And even though it was incredibly devastating at the time, life goes on. And life is about lessons. And so that was a hard lesson for me, but one that was a real wake-up call. And it just so happened that you were starting this literacy program for artists and entertainers and athletes not long after that happened to me. So the timing could not have been better. And so I am making lemonade from that lemon that life served me. And hopefully my story will be a cautionary tale for other people in the entertainment business so that this does not happen to them.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's huge and it's courageous and very kind of you to be comfortable sharing that story, because unfortunately, this happens more often than we hear about or read about. And, folks go into that cocoon. Nobody, in a lot of cases, wants to let people know that that happened to them. So again, I applaud you for being comfortable in getting that out there. Why do you think this continues to persist so much, both in sports and entertainment, as it relates to, what occurred to you think?
Well, I think mostly because as artists and athletes, our focus is on our sport or our craft, whatever you want to call it. And, my education at Carnegie Mellon University was fantastic. My BFA in musical theater, it was a conservatory type program. So all the focus was on the art. And at the time, there was nothing that exposed us to the financial education and the financial component of learning how to move forward in this business. That has changed at CMU since then. But at that time, basically I came out of school with my degree and ready to be an actor and a performer, but not really ready to understand the financial component of it. And I think that happens whether you are an actor, a musician, a director. That part of it is really critical, and we just don't get educated in that way.
Right, and I see Mr. Bart has joined the program. Bart, welcome. In addition to you needing to do that, you've also got to be the CEO of your business to a large degree.
Absolutely, and I often say to young actors, you're the president of your company, and you are your company. And so as a president of that company, you have to make not just artistic decisions, but also financial decisions.
Exactly. No.
Hi, Bart.
Bart, can you hear us? We can see you. Looks like he's still getting his audio squared away.
Okay, very good. Very good.
So when you look back again, that experience, obviously, any thoughts or advice for others in terms of being able to prevent something like that from taking place?
Well, absolutely. And I think that, the main thing is that you have created this program, this company that is here to help artists and entertainers understand. But, what I had learned, and thanks to not just my experience now with the new company that I'm working with, and understanding that, working with a company that has checks and balances and a multi-partner company, so there is culpability from the entire company, not just one individual, really makes a big difference. And it really puts checks and balances in place. And that's one thing that I learned. Another thing that I learned is I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, after you.
Okay. The other thing that I learned was to, have an independent audit periodically, to have somebody from the outside come in and look at the books, and people get kind of, uncomfortable with that because they don't want the firm they're working with to feel like they don't trust them or whatever. But it's business at the end of the day. It's business, and every business does this. When I serve on the board of a couple of different not-for-profits. And even those not-for-profits have an independent auditor to come in annually and look at the books and make sure that everything is as it should be. So that was the other thing that I became aware of and that I have instituted since that time.
So having that checks and balance that's independent and somebody checking your checkers to make sure those chickens, as Marshawn Lynch calls them, are walking around the chicken coop as they need to be.
That's right. That's right.
Bart, we can see you talk. We can see your lips moving, but you must be on mute over there, brother. We're trying to get the audio portion squared away. So Bart will be joining this conversation in a second. So let's transition a little bit. I mean, we're going through COVID-19 now, a period that none of us have ever faced or felt or dealt with before. And the thing that we always have the capability of leaning on in life and giving us that relief is sports and entertainment and movies and TV. And right now, things basically are virtually shut down all across the board. Actors aren't working, singers aren't on the stage. Obviously, our sports figures are not performing live anymore. How is this impacting your industry? And will you talk a little bit about what's taking place behind the scenes there?
Absolutely. I live in New York City, Harlem to be specific. And, of course, the Broadway theaters have completely shut down. That's one huge, it's never happened before in the history. And so many actors are out of work. Me personally, I was on my way to Vancouver to shoot a TV movie. I was going to be there for 3 weeks to a month. That got completely shut down. They pulled the plug right before I was supposed to fly out the next day. I was also lined up to do another episode of Law and Order SVU. That got shut down. So all production got shut down across the country. So that leaves a lot of actors unemployed, and a lot of actors who are not necessarily in the position that I'm in, where I've been doing this for so long and I have built not just a resume, but also a financial cushion. A lot of actors live from check to check. And so for this to happen is really devastating. And it is a perfect example of something that we talk about even when you're fresh out of school at the beginning of your career and you get that Broadway show or you get that TV series, and everyone initially is so excited to have that first gig and to have some money in their pocket. They want to spend it, you know? So it's always trying to encourage young actors and people who are, you know, just landing that big gig that's going to put some money in the bank to really save and be conscious of where you're placing it, and not just, you know, blow it as if this is going to continue. Because particularly in my business, in show business, there are ups and downs. And there are times when you're going to be making a nice piece of change for an extended period of time. And then there's going to become a time where you're not going to be working and you're going to be in between jobs. And so you want to have that financial support in place for those times when it's lean, so that the next time, you know, the meat comes in again, you're not desperate and you've been able to ride it out.
Mm-hmm. You know, so in terms of how you all get paid, I mean, you get paid by the jobs. You know, you fortunately have this amazing resume, so you've got residuals coming in on a lot of the work that you did historically, but a lot of the folks we see out there right now, as you just hit it, are paycheck to paycheck, right?
Correct. And you know, a lot of people don't think about it this way because they see actors on television and in movies and stuff, but it's really a freelance job. You know, it's a freelance job, and you're always wondering, you know, what the next job is going to be, what the next check is going to be. I'll be in the middle of shooting something, you know, that I've had a 6-month commitment to, but then I'm like, okay, what's going to be next? You know, so it's that freelance lifestyle that makes it even more important to have some kind of financial education so that you know how to build toward the future.
You know, so this thing is impacting everybody. I mean, CJ McCollum made a comment last week. You know, he's an amazing basketball player in the NBA, on how he's guesstimating that a third of NBA players right now are living paycheck to paycheck. This is transcending over into, you know, your industry. You just gave some advice in terms of what people should do, but we've got a lot of people on this call today that are not in sports and not in entertainment, that, you know, maybe in the same situation. So, you know, some thoughts or advice that you have for them, because it sounds like some of these things are somewhat similar.
Absolutely. And I think what we're talking about really goes across the boards. No matter what profession you're in, no matter what field you're in, you know, you're always going to want to be looking to financial security. And so in order to do that, one has to educate oneself. You know, it's so interesting because there came a time when I thought, man, I wish I had gone to business school, you know, or at least I had like a double major where I was majoring in the arts, but also majoring in business, so I can understand how that works, you know. But it's never too late. It's never too late to learn. It's never too late to, you know, reshift your program. It's never too late to approach your finances in a much more educated way. And that's what's so great about Edyoucore. It's there for you to help you do that, no matter what business you're in.
Thank you. Thank you for that little plug. So, you know, we talked about your resume earlier. We talked about the diversity of your portfolio, but right now, again, you know, you just talked about a couple jobs that shut down. What are some things that you're thinking about now when you talk about being able to adjust or adapt to this new COVID environment that we're in, from the standpoint of looking at ways to add some new revenue streams to what you're doing? Because, you know, we're going to come out of this thing in a completely different space with new businesses, new situations that are going to be evolved and created. What are your thoughts about what's happening there in your world?
Well, you know, I certainly hope you're right about that. You know, I'm looking at this very stressful and challenging time as also an opportunity to figure out what the new normal is going to be when we get on the other side of this. Fun things have been happening, particularly in the arts world, where, for example, just a couple of weeks ago, I participated in a Zoom live presentation of a reading of the Greek play Lysistrata. It was produced by the Pittsburgh Public Theater, and there were 12 actors, 15 actors who were all over the country who were able to come in and be a part of this reading. Now, I don't think anything substitutes for live performance, but I do think that there's an opportunity for theaters to provide entertainment in this virtual form for people who can't leave their house, for people who are sick, for people who are older, for people who can't have access to getting to the theater. And I think that's a really positive thing to come out of this. And so I think there's going to be more of that. I think there's going to be more exploration of how to use this medium, whether it's Zoom or Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, whatever. I mean, for example, right now, I have a very dear friend who's in Los Angeles, who is a Pilates instructor, has her own studio. And me and several other of my women friends from all over the country gather on Instagram at noon on Friday for Pilates class, and we never even thought to do that before this happened. So, I mean, that's just one example of looking at the silver lining. I know a lot of movies that were to be released in theaters are now being released on Netflix or, whatever streaming device is they're choosing. And I think that's fantastic, but I think it's temporary because, again, there's nothing like actually going to the cinema, sitting in a dark space, having a communal experience with people, and even though this virtual is something that is really helpful to us right now, it's keeping us connected in a positive way, but there is nothing that compares to sharing a live experience with a group of strangers, because suddenly politics don't matter, race doesn't matter, religion doesn't matter. Everybody's there for the same reason, whether it's in the cinema, whether it's in the theater, whether it's at a live music event. And that's, that's the energy that people take away from those experiences. And so I'm looking forward to getting back to those experiences.
So, you hit on a piece that I was going to ask you about. We've seen some releases that have been postponed. We're now seeing some that are going to be released, obviously, or have been released at home. And, I hit you up about some recommendations. I am binge watching Ozark, and so are a bunch of friends. So thank you for the heads up on that one. But do you see, after this thing is done, any continuation of that pattern? I mean, you talked about Broadway being able to be delivered to elderly people because it's tough to get out. What are some of these changes you think that are happening right now that could be a little bit more longer lasting?
I think time will tell. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's very difficult right now to see the forest for the trees. But I do think that this is an opportunity. There's Bart. How are you?
I can finally hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you too. Yeah.
Welcome.
I know we were seeing each other. We couldn't hear anybody, but it's all good. I'm sure by the mannerisms, everything was right on point. I know I missed a lot, but just let me slide right on in.
Glad you're here, brother. Glad you're here. Jump on in.
No problem at all. No problem at all. So I was just saying that, time will tell how this all plays out as far as the entertainment industry is concerned. But I do know that so many people, another show that I was in the midst of doing is this television show on Apple TV called C, starring Jason Momoa. And I had shot my first 2 episodes up in Toronto a couple of weeks before they closed the borders. And I was scheduled to go back this month to continue to do more work on that. But I know people are, anxious and chomping at the bit to see those shows again. So I'm looking forward to going back to work when this is all said and done. And I think that, there'll be a balance between, staying at home and watching on your device and going out and experiencing a live performance. So, and as I said, I don't think anything replaces that. I mean, I know as an actor, my preference actually is the theater, to be in front of a live audience, as a singer to be in front of a live audience. But I also love doing film and television. But there's nothing, there's that energy exchange between an audience and a performer is not anything that can be replicated. So I think, I think we're going to be okay, and we're going to go back to balancing between what we can provide virtually and what we're going to continue to do live.
Now, I have 3 young kids, so I'm used to going to the theaters, but it had got to the point now where it would cost me $120 by going to the theater, going to the movies, buying popcorn. In the theaters, I remember listening to Mark Cuban when the NFL was trying to expand to additional days, and he said fat pigs get slaughtered. And I'm looking at how at the theater, what they start doing is like nitpicking you. So they'll give you fries and chicken tenders, but the combo wouldn't come with a drink. So then you have to buy the drink. And I just think that in the current climate that we're in, I don't know if people are going to want to go, one, have my food touched by the people preparing it, but also sitting next to people. So, I mean, me and my kids watched Trolls here the other day that was in theaters that now is on Apple TV and things of that sort. It almost reminds me of the music industry, where now you don't need the big labels behind you because technology is so good that you can distribute your own music through SoundCloud and things like that. How do you think this is going to affect, and sorry if you already answered this, how do you think this is going to affect your industry with being able to go to a Netflix or be able to go to Amazon? And also, what kind of competition do you think is going to be spawned from this new current climate that we have as far as new businesses coming out? Because we know fracking is going to take place.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think production companies are definitely going to have to, rethink their model. And I think that theaters are going to, particularly cinemas, are going to have to rethink how they're charging people, what they're offering, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be very competitive. I think it's going to be very competitive. So, in order to continue to get butts in the seats, as we say in our business, there's going to have to be some adjustments for sure. No question.
Now, I remember Hamilton, right? Did Hamilton ever put anything, because I know your love is the theater, did Hamilton ever put anything like on a DVD or on a video where you can see it visually like that? Because I think the last thing to come back is going to be these large mass gatherings. And I know it's going to be difficult. Maybe you can have a controlled environment, because we're having these same discussions in the sports realm. How do we have games without fans, and how do you have plays? I know you guys have rehearsals without people there, but is it a way where you almost have to pipe in the atmosphere, or do you have social distancing where you maybe have less people in the theater, but have them where people can sit in clusters with each other? So if you come with a certain amount of people, then you're, socially distanced with your own group, and you can request maybe certain, capacities for your group that you can vouch for?
I don't know. We'll see. I get your point completely. And I think that it's going to take a while to figure that out. Right now, a lot of theaters are providing virtual entertainment because the theaters are shut down. Broadway isn't doing that, really. Broadway isn't doing anything that was currently running on Broadway, but there are some things that you can catch from old performances that are being broadcast virtually. But the whole, social distancing and how we're going to continue forward and is a big question mark. I mean, it's just a huge question mark.
One of the things we started doing, and it's early technology, but we kind of been playing around with it. Last year, the idea of virtual seats came up, where we were selling, where you sit down in your house and they have certain cameras positions at arenas. So you can get the view from as if you're sitting in the actual seat with like the VR goggles and things of that sort. That may, with this whole climate, it makes me think that I'm back to Demolition Man. You know, when
Right.
Taco Bell was the only company that survived, and everything was
Yes.
done virtually, and it was all through that experience. And I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I never thought I would live to see this type of environment. And
I
I'm
know.
trying to figure out myself, you know, I'm trying to figure out myself, because if you can't have sports, then I mean, I'm out of a job as well. So, you know, you're trying to make sure that you pivot and make sure that you figure out how you can survive in this current climate. So now I'm looking at Amazon and, you know, having a fleet. I'm looking at anything that can help me pivot where I can kind of continue until we figure this out, because the Los Angeles mayor said that they don't anticipate any large gatherings to 2022.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
Wow. That's
I'm like
that's
2022.
Yeah.
I
That's a
know,
long time.
2022. That's a long time.
I'm like, what about that new stadium that they just built in LA? What about the new stadium just built? You know, Dolan, James Dolan just sold it to Steve Ballmer so that the Clippers can have their own they can have their own arena. So it's
Right.
Spend
Right.
that debt.
Right.
Yeah, so-
And it's a big what if.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess I got an interesting question for both of you on that topic. So obviously, you know, Bart, you talked last week about what this draft is going to look like next week, because, you know, you're not going to be in that city, in the building, et cetera. You know, Tamara, as we think about theater, we think about movies, we think about, you know, you were going down to do a couple segments of Law and Order a couple weeks ago. What's that backlog now going to look like as far as work is concerned? And then, you know, I'm an aspiring actor. I may be out now having plans to have auditioned. You know, you guys are now bringing folks in to start getting work done. I mean, what's this going to do in terms of pushing things out to that longer term?
Well, I think as soon as we're able to start production again, I think there's going to be an onslaught of new product and material that the audience is going to be hungry for. So I actually think there's going to be a lot of work available. And so it really is just a matter of figuring out how to move forward after this after this, you know, initial crush of this new experience, this unprecedented event that no one has ever really experienced before. And so it's figuring out, you know, how to move forward once we're on the other side of it, because we are going to get on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we are going to be healthy again, and we are going to be able to, you know, go out and go about our lives again and be able to gather again. But the question is, as you said, Bart, what is that going to look like? And, you know, as far as production is concerned, I mean, I'm confident that as with, I mean, you know, I don't want to digress, but I just remember like my first sexual harassment seminar. You know what I mean? So sociologically, these things change. And because of this health event and medical event, that's going to affect sociologically. And so, you know, I'm sure at some point when we do go back that there are going to be measures in place as far as protective measures and health measures that we never experienced in our business before. You know, what that's going to look like, I don't know, but I'm positive, because you can't come through something like this and not adjust and change, you know, whether it's transitional, whether it's a pivot, which an about face, or whether it's just a slight turn or angle to in a different direction. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But what I do believe, and why I can stay positive, is that I think that just as you and I, the three of us, Pittsburgh Public Theater, my friends and I who are having Zoom poetry jams online, just people are just being really thoughtful and creative about how to deal with this moment right now. And I think they're going to be just as thoughtful and creative when we're on the other side of this and how we're going to move forward from there.
Well, you know, art imitates life. And I can only imagine, you say you're going to shoot some Law and Order, some shows. I know that you guys always are in tune with what's going on in society. So I can imagine it being some episodes about how we handle this, because this reminds me of like going, this goes back to Outbreak and all the movies that we saw before that we thought never was really a reality.
Yep.
But I remember out of the recession, that's where, Uber, became prevalent, right? And all the things that we did as a society to try and, adjust. So I'm like, it's like I'm choosing to use my quarantine time as an opportunity to try and spitball with myself about how is the world going to be different coming out and how can I benefit from it? Because now it's forced all of us to whether it's our kids, students, to have to learn a different way. You're looking at, the NFL, NBA, MLB, all the sports leagues. Now they're sending their programs to players, and now they have to virtually sign on. They've sent out all their iPads. They have to learn how to prepare themselves. And it's a sense of isolation when you're by yourself. Yes. And you have to be self-motivated, but now you understand that this is your new reality. So you have to adjust to your new reality and try and really worry about what I'm worried about more is the mental health, right? The isolation, the people without families, the people that can't have contact with other people. And it's been because of the technology. Could you imagine if this happened 20 years ago when we didn't have the ability to talk to each other, just the warmth we feel of seeing the actual facial expressions of the people that we love just gives us the motivation to kind of get up. I was trying to open up a gym. Now we have to consider, almost pushing the Peloton type of technology further, where now you're being able to communicate back and forth with a television, and now the instructor is almost like he's on a DVD, but he can actually respond to you. He can actually see you. He can actually correct you. That's just kind of where we are. But so I'm sad that we're here and so many people have to lose their lives. But I understand that out of every tragedy, it's an opportunity coming out to provide a service and a need for people that need something. People are going to need sports, and somebody's going to have to be able to, deliver it to them. Now, I just have to adjust, and we all have to adjust to how we're going to give it to them. I mean, we may have to go out and
It's like you were saying, Bart, it's like, not only how can I benefit moving forward, but also how can I contribute moving forward? What idea can I come up with, that's going to be helpful moving forward, that's going to add something to the equation and to the table. So there's that too. And not to be morbid, but, a lot of people know that I grew up in the funeral business, and my family has a funeral home in Pittsburgh. And, they haven't been able to hold large funerals because of this, you know what I mean? So when you talk about that isolation and that mental health, I mean, in the funeral business, funerals are not for the person who is deceased. Funerals are for the living. Funerals are for the family, the friends, to come together, to gather, to help each other heal, to help each other mourn, to help each other, move through that process. And not being able to do that right now is really, really impactful. And my family's business, they're doing virtual funerals where, of course, the family, the immediate family or the nuclear family gathers at the funeral home, but everybody else has to, watch it virtually. And that's another emotional component, you know what I mean? And there are so many other factors, and emotional health is so important and so critical.
Absolutely. Being able to have some closure, that's the thing. I think people just want closure. You can't have closure if you can't say goodbye. Saying goodbye virtually isn't that real feeling of being there and being able to get it all out. So, I mean, I can imagine us, right? We talk about now, the gift and the curse. The gift is now that the genie's out of the bag, we'll be able to maybe present these virtually to our clients and be able to talk and do programs virtually and be able to have dialogue back and forth, no different than if we were their teachers. And it's something that, would allow us to be able to touch more places because of technology and because everybody's going to pivot. Because now, I mean, you think about Zoom, I knew about Zoom, but now, things of that nature is going to be developed. And now we're going to be able to be in more places at one time. And now, because we forced to use it, now I believe because we're forced, we realize that it's not that bad. People that had hesitation about using technology and being afraid to use technology have been forced because we had to adjust. No different from our grandparents and our parents when we moved to the digital component where we use computers, where there was no computers in the house. Now we had the internet, the first AOL dial-up. You know what I
Right.
mean? And they were like, what's this? Now my mom is better than I am. She hit me with all the emojis,
Want it.
hashtags. Like, Mom, I can't even keep up.
I know exactly. My mom is the same way. Drew can attest to it. Gigi has become quite proficient with her emojis.
Oh, she's on them.
But yeah,
on 'em.
you're right. You're right, Bart, because as you said, I mean, I was aware of Zoom, but I had never Zoomed before this moment. I
Right.
had done Skype, I had done FaceTime, but now it's all about the Zoom, and like I said, I don't know if you were on when I was talking about it, but the Pittsburgh Public Theater, we did a virtual live reading of a Greek play, Lysistrata, and we did it
Nice.
through Zoom. And so, there were 12 to 13 actors in different cities, all gathered on this Zoom. And then the director was at the controls and, basically like calling the shots, if you will.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost like, shooting a 3-camera television show, and she was calling the shots. And then for us, we had to figure out how we were going to make our entrances and exits. You know what I mean? So we would basically exit like that, and then enter like that. You know what I mean?
Nice.
So that was, so it's all, it's interesting how when we are forced to, as you say, we become very adept at how to make this stuff work.
Sink or swim, right? Sink or swim.
That's right. And actually it's fun.
Yeah. Because now I feel like I can be closer with my family now, that's not here. Now I can get them all on. You see people having dinner with each other.
Yes, that's what we're doing. I mean, it's like you said, I mean, my family and I, we have a group text, that we've been doing for a few years, but now we set up our family Zoom, you know what I mean? So my niece in Georgia and my brother in Tennessee and my nephews in Virginia and, my family in Pittsburgh, we all come together on the screen. So, there's a silver lining. There's a silver lining.
Hey, Bart, we got a question from BJ that chimed in, and it's actually for both of you. You had made the comment about streams and some of the things that you're thinking about in this environment, and they wanted just to get some of your thoughts about what some of the things either of you are considering or looking at related to that right now.
Can you broke up a little bit? I'm sorry, Drew, you broke up a little bit.
Yeah, the question was, Bart, you both we had conversation about diversifying revenue streams right now. And, Bart, you had mentioned some opportunities or situations that you potentially are looking at. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I've been looking at a little bit before this environment. I've been looking at the Amazon trucks and how that business operates. Now you look at in this environment, they're one of the most essential companies going on right now, because they're not just a food company. They're not just a goods company. They're everything. You know what I mean? They're all in our lives. I mean, they even have owned Whole Foods. You look at where Bezos is going, being worth $1.1 trillion, because of this. And, that's a company that you believe have a strong portfolio. So I've been looking at being able to do that and have an opportunity to put my team together where you buy trucks, and FedEx does the same thing, but FedEx isn't linked in with the culture, right? I always tell all the time, like, people love, Wendy's got the best hamburgers to me, but right now the institution is McDonald's, and it's always been there, and it's not like they have the best food, So understanding that right now the trend is Amazon, I want to try and ride that wave and see where I can capitalize on it. They took the contract away from FedEx for $8 billion that they were given for FedEx to be able to deliver their products. They still have some contracts with UPS for some of the heavier things that they ship as far as freight wise, but they're kind of using the Uber model. And the Uber model is that, everybody's independent contractor. So they give you the ability to they lease you out the vans, and they handle the insurance and all that stuff. And you get your own team and you deliver the products, and you make a daily rate based off your trucks that you have. So it's just an opportunity that I've been looking into. The opportunity was brought to me from a friend. I vetted it, met with the guy, and I think this is something that could be a smart thing to add to the portfolio.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to throw a question to both of you. I mean, you both have been very successful as far as your careers are concerned. You've diversified your portfolio as it relates to your work product in a variety of ways. Right now, this country is going through a money situation. And irrespective of whether you are an NBA player, an NFL player, you know, a prominent actor or singer or whomever, you know, we just constantly hear these stories about people that are having these challenges. And, you know, being in April in Financial Literacy Month, it's still just somewhat frustrating, you know, where we are and our lack of understanding. So, you know, I'd love to get your thoughts and perspectives in terms of what you all, you know, had done on your own to get up to speed, and some of the things that you all would tell people right now, whether they're in your profession or not in your profession, regarding getting on top of this and really tightening up that money game right now.
Well, one thing that I'm doing, I mean, and part of it was being, you know, forced to. I mean, when you can't leave your house, you can't spend money. I mean, it's like, you know, normally every time I walk out the door, it's like $100 just goes out of my pocket, you know, and I don't even know where it went to, you know what I mean? So, you know, we're being forced to kind of, you know, tighten our belts. But at the same time, I think that, you know, we can take steps to take that even further, you know, by what we're deciding to buy. I mean, it's so tempting. You're talking about Amazon, you know, Amazon is like my provider. It's my purveyor for everything, you know, and so, you know, and I'm an online shopper normally. So for me, it's about, you know, not online shopping for one, you know what I mean? And another thing that had happened prior to this health emergency was that I had already been using a food service that delivers food for a month. My sister and I had decided we were going to do the South Beach diet after the new year back in January, you know, just to like snatch it back after the holidays. Yes. And the South Beach diet, not to plug any one particular food service, but basically the South Beach diet sends you food for a month. So I was already doing that. And so I knew that my grocery bill was going to be X amount of dollars each month because I was getting that food service. Yeah. So that's another way to kind of, you know, budgetized how you're spending your food money on food and groceries. So those are just a couple of things that, you know, I'm doing right now.
Well, for me, it's just like understanding what I need and what I want. And as I get older, I realize that I need less and I want less because I've kind of been through that phase. So for me, I'm thinking about really what's essential. You know, I'm looking at my kids, they're getting older, they're going to be out of the house. Do I need a massive house like this? I don't really think so. It's like, it's an unnecessary cost. So trying to figure out, you know what, where am I at in my life? Where do I really what do I want to do? You know what I mean? Because you can't think about where you are at now. You think about where you want to be. And, you know, I think that I want to be able to move around this country and not have one big place, and be able to have places where I can go set up and enjoy life. As you sacrifice so much early in life, you want to be able to enjoy it. And I'm starting to try and learn stuff from people that came before me. You know, I live in New York, so of course everybody has a place, either a beach house or they migrate down to Florida. And you start thinking like, well, what made them make that decision? They're no different from you know, where I'm at. But they decided that, listen, man, like sometimes you want to sacrifice environment for the brick and mortar stuff. You want to be able to change the landscape. So, I mean, more and more I'm thinking about, you know, being able to move around. And I used to be afraid to venture out because I say I got to go do this radio job. But now, guess what? I've been doing a radio show from here for 31 days. So that proved to me, and it took that whole stigma, oh, how's it going to sound like? Can it be successful? What are they going to say? So when I go back to work, whether we got to go back to work or not, well, I'm going to be taking this little brick right here, this little brick that I use to dial into my show every day, and it sounds like I'm in the studio. I'm going to take this little brick, and I'm going to make sure I enjoy life and live life and not work myself to death for things. I'm going to make sure I'm able to go out and enjoy myself and do the things that I want to do. Because when I check my bucket list, I haven't been to the countries that I want to go to. I haven't been able to do the things that I want to do because I'm always working. And this whole thing has really told me that the things that you value are wrong. You know, the things you should be valuing are the time that you're able to spend with your kids, the legitimate time you're able to spend with your kids, helping your kids with homework, because so much was involved in our travel to and from what we have to do, whether it's the kids traveling to and from school, you traveling to and from, you know, the city to go to work. Well, those are hours that are lost that could be quality time that you can spend. So I'm saying now, instead of trying to acquire things, I want to acquire time, because if anything that this pandemic has shown you, that you never know when your time is up. And so I want to put more value in my time, because, money comes and goes, but, experiences in life and memories are really what's truly valuable.
Yeah, those are critical. During this period of time, I mean, we talk about team and the importance of being connected with people. I know for a fact, I've talked to my financial advisor more probably in the past 4 weeks than I've talked to him in the past year. Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit about the communications that you all have had with the people managing your money, managing your business affairs, your advisor, your CPA. What are those conversations like? What are the things that you all are staying on top of and making sure are happening right now? And are they keeping it real with you, letting you know how bad things are down, how much you've lost, et cetera?
Well, you have to figure out, no different from the recession of 2008, just figuring out, are we good? Are we in it for the long run? Or are we in it to try and pull out and get out while we can? When you think about the stock market, and, how is our plan and our portfolio holding up? How's my emergency fund? What happens if sports are canceled? Am I okay? If sports are canceled and then all of a sudden, I'm furloughed from being able to do a job that I thought I was going to be doing for my contract 2 years. What expenses do we need to step back from, as far as, all the other people that I assist and I help outside? What happens to this business, and also talking to my partners with the gym, because the gyms are the last thing that's going to come back. People aren't running to go sweat and touch something that somebody else has touched. How can we get the assistance through some of these programs? Do we qualify? So it's a conversation that you have to have, an in-depth conversation that you have to have. You think about, insurances and things like that. I pay for my HRA, I pay for my insurance through the NFL. I don't even take advantage of the insurance because I don't think it's as good from TV. Well, do I want to save that money in my HRA for a long term and then just step over to this because I ain't going nowhere? You know what I mean? I'm stuck in the house. I'm not doing anything, that can, I hope I can't get hurt unless I fall down the steps because I'm sleeping too much. You know what I mean? So figuring out those type of things and where you pivot and where you make adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
My situation isn't as involved as Bart's. My conversations basically with my business manager are really just about, not panicking and staying the course.
Yep. And so when you think about this, I mean, obviously, Bart, you're in the house, the kids are there. What are some of the conversations you're talking to them about? Not only with what's going on, but about money right now. Your kids grew up living a unique lifestyle, I'm sure. And so, some of these things may have changed. And what message would you tell other former pro athletes, and Tamara, the same thing for, some of your colleagues that may have kids in those same situations regarding what's going on right now and how some of those cutbacks should take place?
Well, I'm just going to jump in real quick, Bart, because I just want to piggyback on what you had said earlier. And I think that pertains to this question as well. It's about what is valuable, what is valuable and what is important. And I think it's a great time right now to have conversations with your kids and assess about what is truly valuable in life, So I mean, that's my only thought on that at this moment. I think I think this is a perfect opportunity. And as you said, Bart, now parents are spending so much more time with their kids than they have been before. So it's another silver lining. It's another, opportunity to really have some meaningful conversations with kids about, what is valuable in life. Our kids as a culture, we're constantly being fed that material things is what matters. And this is the perfect opportunity to share that, no, that's not what matters. And look at the value and look at the fun and look at the enjoyment and look at the in-depth, relationship participation you can have at this time that has nothing to do with material things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm at. I have a son that's going to have a birthday in a couple of days, and actually in a week. And what it's really about is just his value system, because I feel like, a lot of times, especially when you don't have time, you're always going and you leave, and it's easy for you just to give them things. And I think it's more important for us to give them values. And, sometimes that's what slips because we don't have the time, because we're always running, we're doing things. We don't have that one-on-one time with our kids like we should, at least in my case, because it's almost like two cars, two ships passing each other at the night. Sometimes, I have them all at different stages. So sometimes it requires being able to do one with one and something different with another, and then something with the youngest, and they're so far apart. My oldest is 14, my youngest is 6. So sometimes the 14-year-old don't want to do what the 6-year-old wants to do. So you have to try and separate it and bring them all together. So I think what it teaches them, and what we're trying to show them, how to value their time, and their time is money, and being able to to organize their time and be able to accomplish everything that you need to do, and then have time to do what you want to do. And, it's really about being able to have those opportunities with each other to create memories, because that's all you can really hold on to.
There you go. That's what I was going to say. It's such a great time for the older sibling to really spend quality time with the younger sibling,
Yes.
and which is going to create a stronger bond and incredible memories, when they grow up and become adults.
Yeah, exactly. Because those are those value systems, because we like to think that me and my wife will be around for a long time, but you just never know. So you want to create those connections and bonds between the siblings, so that no matter what, they're good. So that you can rest easy that they're good. That, if anything ever happens, that they can take care of each other. They can find peace in each other. And, you try and instill a little bit of you in every one of them, so that, you can continue to live, and your principles and your morals can live through them. And when they hear each other, they can hear us.
Amen.
That was solid. That was real tight. One quick thing for both of you, and then we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. So again, message that you would send to those in the entertainment space, those in the sports space. I mean, everybody's sitting home right now. They're cleaning out closets. They're doing projects around the house that they have not historically done before. Let's shift that gear and, utilize this time now to focus on things from a get lit and financial standpoint, in terms of getting their house in order or getting a better understanding on some things that they should be focused on. What's your message to those in entertainment? Bart, what's your message to those in sports?
I would say in the entertainment field, I would just say this is a perfect opportunity to take the time to clean your house, get your affairs in order. We're not running around, from job to job, trying to make the money, et cetera, et cetera. This is a perfect time to, educate yourself, to have your conversations with your different financial advisors or accountants, et cetera, and to be set up for the after, to be set up to move forward from here.
Yeah, you're either going to come out of this thing better or worse. And, we've been locked down for about a month. And it's just been issued that we're going to be locked down and living in the same environment at least for another month before they try and ease back some of the restrictions. So make sure that you use this time as value. Decide what you want and make sure you come out better. And if you're an athlete, you have to have your obligations as far as your golden goose, which is making money by actually playing and being your body is how you make money. But, take some time out to use your mind to make some money too, right? So that you can make sure that you can, maximize your earning potential, figure out, some things that you want to do, get that plan for that transition when you decide to step away from the game. And so that you can have that plan and implement it, right? You got to this point because you had goals and you took the necessary steps to achieve those goals. Well, then set some more goals and figure out, how do I want to transition, and what do I really want to do? Because like I tell the athletes, you're going to spend more time out of a uniform in your life than you do in one.
Great. And let me just piggyback on that, because I think what we're saying does not just apply to entertainers and athletes. Right. I think it applies to everyone. And I also think it applies to everyone in every economic bracket as well. You may not have a financial advisor if you're not in that position, but you can certainly, educate yourself, whether it's just going online and paying attention to what's happening with your bank account and what's happening with your monthly budget, your weekly budget. You know, it's a good time to do all that stuff.
Could not have had a better line to close it on. You know, we're not going to leave this conversation, Bart, with the head of Ravens Nations and head of Steeler Nations with a prediction from you on where Baltimore ends up versus Pittsburgh next season.
Well, listen, I think, you know, Ben Roethlisberger coming back makes them legit. I mean, they went out and got Mika Fitzpatrick last year. Mika's tremendous. They don't have a first-round draft pick. You know, he's well worth it. He's still, you know, cheap because he doesn't hit the free agent market for a while. They have that young defense able to keep Bud Dupree together. You know, but you look at the Ravens, they shored up their defense. You know, you think that Lamar can maybe take the next step. You know, one thing that's going to happen because they're not able to have these off-season programs, and I don't think that the teams that have new coaches are going to be able to catch up and keep up with the teams that already have their core together. So you look at Lamar Jackson, and you thought people in this offseason would be able to break that offense down and be able to catch up. Well, if you can't get together, how can you communicate and learn how to stop that? So I think it's still, you know, even with Cleveland coming in that division, I think it's still a two-horse race between the Steelers and the Ravens. The Ravens really plugged up a lot of holes that they had last year. And then the holes that they had was apparent in the Tennessee, you know, playoff game that we went to. They got bullied. And in Baltimore, you can lose a lot of ways, but you can't lose by getting punked. And, you know, they got punked. So they went out and they got Calais Campbell. They went out and got Derek Wolfe and say, okay, you know, come in here with, you know, Williams up the middle. If you can do that, then you deserve it. But you're going to earn every yard you get. And I think they go draft. And I've been breaking down these linebackers. I think they go Kenneth Murray. I think I see Pittsburgh drafting the heir apparent to Ben Roethlisberger. So maybe Jalen Hurts in the second round. He's a winner. He's a national champion. He's been successful in two different programs, you know, Oklahoma and, of course, with Nick Saban in Alabama. So I think, you know, the division in the position as well. And it's healthy within the division as we're starting to see some of these older quarterbacks usher themselves out. You know, before you know it, it's going to be no Tom Brady. It's going to be no Phillip Rivers. We already lost Eli Manning. I think that, you know, guys like Jalen Hurts, guys like Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, you know, Baker Mayfield, the league is in good hands. And you look at the money that they're getting now, man. I mean, you look at McCaffrey getting $16 million as a running back is unheard of. So you know Saquon's going to want 17 or 20.
Crazy. So it sounds like the Ravens are going to be on top of Pittsburgh is what you just summarized.
I don't think so. But anyway, time will tell.
Yes, it will. Well, listen, I want to give a strong shout out to Keith Clinkscales and the Shadow League. Thank you for their partnership and support and sponsorship of today's program. Bart, as a co-host, another great job. Tamara, thank you so very, very, very much. Both of you dropped incredible pieces of wisdom and knowledge today. We appreciate all that you've done, and we'll continue to see you both prosper and do great things in your careers. And again, sharing your messages to help other people. Next week, we're going to be back. We're going to be joined by Ward Manuel, the athletic director at no other than the University of Michigan. Go Blue. And we're going to be talking about what's happening in college sports.
Oh, I got so many questions for him.
It's going to be ready. Stay tuned.
I'll be tuning in for that. I'll be tuning in for that.
Stay tomorrow. I need some acting lessons because I'm trying to diversify.
Okay, brother. I can virtually give you some acting lessons.
Thank you again, both of you. Great segment today. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Greatly appreciate it. Stay safe out there. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week. Have a great day.